So how did I get here? Why plants? Why trees? Why flowers? Why landscape? It's a story that starts in 1972 with my first apartment. And in 1972, there was a plant rage in the country. It was little plants, there were macrames, it was mid-century. It's what we're returned to today. So moving into my first apartment, I bought a rubber plant. I had never had a plant before in my life. In my growing up, I dug holes for my parents and planted palm trees. I had no interest in it. No interest in the holes, no interest in the trees. All I wanted to do was get on my bike and go play baseball. So in 1972, I'm moving into my first apartment. I buy the rubber plant, I carry it in, I break the top off the rubber plant. This is a little crazy story, but this is really important. This is why I'm here almost 40 years later. The rubber plant the top breaks off. Call my mother, who was the head of the garden society. She says, put the top in a glass of water and then put the plant next to it. And it will root and you'll have two plants. I go, I don't know what you're talking about, but fine. I was at University of Florida, which is in Gainesville, Florida, which is very cold. So all winter, the plant sat on the patio. I remember it was 28 degrees and I would continue to look at this plant every once in a while. Spring comes, this is now 6 months later, spring comes. I keep looking, by the way, nothing's happening. It's just sitting there. It's not dying, it's not living. And I look and there are little fine roots that are coming into the water. And there's a new leaf unfurling to the top of the rubber plant. And I was struck by lightning. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it happened. I to this day don't understand it. But from that moment on, I was smitten by the world of plants. Within weeks, I ended up with hundreds of creeping Charlies, which was the hanging plant that everybody grew, a very simple plant, actually a plectranthus, hanging, potted, on the balcony. It was covered. Within a year, I moved out of my apartment and moved onto 200 acres outside the city of Gainesville. I was studying journalism, broadcast journalism at the time. Next thing I know, I'm taking courses in agriculture in the horticultural school, and I'm growing everything that you could imagine. Compost piles, everything you can imagine. And I have green hands, and I have no idea how I have green hands. People ask me to this day, how do you know how to do this? I don't know how. I was touched. I was touched by God. I was epiphany. I don't know what it was and what it is, but to this day, I can look across a field and tell you if a tree is healthy, if it's dry, if it's overwatered. I just am one with these living organisms, and it's been the greatest blessing of my life. So now I have this business. I started out, my first little store was at the Gainesville Mall, and it was a kiosk. I may have had one of the first kiosks in the United States, and I had it covered in plants, and I couldn't have been happier. And now it's 40 years later, and here I am.